Well, good afternoon from the International Space Station Flight Control Room here at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. In just a few moments, we're going to be back live with views from the International Space Station as the orbiting laboratory gets ready to fly over Hurricane Dorian, currently churning its way through the Atlantic and the Caribbean seas. As mentioned, we're going to be getting those live views very soon. The station expected to fly just to the east of the hurricane, as it is now currently. The station going to be flying over Cuba and right between that and the Dominican Republic, and its cameras are going to be looking out to the east and then hopefully getting some views of the hurricane. Again, Hurricane Dorian became a hurricane when it was near St. Thomas and the U.S. Virgin Islands, that happening roughly 24 hours ago. And at this point, moving well north of Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, where conditions are going to continue to improve. So now we're going to be bringing you a live view from the station to give you some perspective. Right now, it's over the northwestern United States, actually getting a pass over the Rocky Mountains. It's going to continue to fly to the southeast, eventually passing just to the west of Florida and then out over the Bahamas and Cuba, where we're going to have cameras trained out looking for the hurricane. We're expecting that pass to begin in about 4 minutes from now. And all of the latest information from the National Hurricane Center, which if you want to go find out more information, you can go to just hurricane.gov, especially if you're in the anticipated track of the storm. Important to head there for all of the latest updates from the National Weather Service in their National Hurricane Center. The latest report coming just about 2 hours ago at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. All of the latest data pointing to a small eye of Dorian has appeared intermittently using both infrared satellite imagery and a number of flights from a NOAA P-3 airplane. That aircraft indicating there's a double eye wall structure, small inner eye, only about 5 nautical miles in diameter, with the larger 25 nautical mile diameter outer eye wall. The minimum pressure for the storm has fallen to around 986 millibars. Just for context, the lower that number is, it indicates a lower atmospheric pressure and usually indicates a much stronger storm. So at this point, it is a Category 1 storm expected to strengthen over the next several days as it continues to move currently to the north and northwest. It's eventually going to hit a ridge or an area of higher pressure out over Bermuda that's going to move that track more to the west and northwest, ultimately aiming it towards the Florida Panhandle. So again, Dorian, it's forecast right now from the National Hurricane Center to continue moving in a northwestern fashion over the next 24 to 36 hours, and then eventually moving a little bit more west. Environmental conditions in the area have fairly warm waters and low vertical wind shear, so that's something that can effectively lower the strength of a hurricane if that's higher, but it is low along the path so far, and so that leads forecasters expecting the hurricane to continue to steadily intensify over the next 2 to 3 days. And the latest forecast calls for Dorian to become a major hurricane on Friday, and it's going to show a slightly higher peak intensity than was previously forecast. So as of the report about 2 hours ago, winds peaking at about 85 miles an hour, now expected for Dorian to achieve potentially a Category 4 status before it moves into the Florida Peninsula, that packing winds up to 130 miles an hour. Now, again, the National Hurricane Center just released some of their key messages, again, about 2 hours ago, indicating that the life-threatening storm surge and hurricane force winds this weekend going to continue to increase the chances for that in the Bahamas, and hurricane watches potentially being issued there tonight or on Friday. And then the increased likelihood of storm surge along portions of Florida's east coast late this weekend or even early next week. Still too soon to exactly pinpoint when, but their forecast will obviously continue to refine as the hurricane continues to move along and gets closer to land. They are reminding all residents potentially in the path, make sure you have a hurricane plan in place, and again, head to hurricane.gov or any advice given by local emergency officials to continue to prepare. And at this point, the National Hurricane Center also expecting hurricane force winds potentially along the Florida East Coast and Peninsula later this weekend, arriving as early as Saturday, or at least tropical force winds arriving at Florida as early as this Saturday. For now, though, the station continuing to fly towards the area. It's right over the heartland of the United States right now, so that's a live view that we're getting. The station itself, 262 miles in altitude, just about to cross the Missouri-Arkansas border. It's going to continue on this southeasterly track, passing over Mississippi, Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle, eventually moving just over the very southwestern portion of the Florida Peninsula, and then out to the west of the Bahamas, moving over Cuba, and then between Cuba and the Dominican Republic. By that point, we should be getting some views from these cameras being controlled by flight controllers here in Mission Control Houston at the Johnson Space Center. They're going to be keeping an eye out for Dorian. We'll be bringing you those live views as the station approaches. And if you're just now joining us, the space station continuing to fly towards the direction of Hurricane Dorian. Expecting to start getting views from the outboard cameras on the station in just a few minutes from now. Again, when we last checked in, the station was just over the Arkansas-Missouri border, already passing just between Mississippi and Alabama now, and will soon be flying over the Florida Panhandle and out to the west of the Florida Peninsula. And this is Mission Control Houston. There it is, Hurricane Dorian now coming into view from cameras on the International Space Station. The station itself right now 261 statute miles off the southern tip of Florida. So it's going to continue to fly by. These cameras again being controlled from flight controllers here inside Mission Control Houston. Hurricane Dorian, a Category 1 storm right now, expected to continue to intensify over the next several days, potentially attaining Category 4 status before it moves over the eastern coast of Florida as early as the beginning of next week. And right now the station just passing over the very northern part of Cuba, so we're continuing to fly to the west of the storm. Now getting a live view of Hurricane Dorian from one of these outboard cameras in the station right now, 261 statute miles. It's already crossed over the island of Cuba, and it's now off to the west of Haiti. Again, the latest measurements from a National Hurricane Service or a NOAA P3 aircraft measured speeds at about 85 miles an hour inside. And if you're just now joining us, continuing to get live views from outboard cameras on the International Space Station looking down at Hurricane Dorian. The station itself at this moment, 261 statute miles over the Earth's surface, already to the south of Haiti, continuing on a southeasterly track. The hurricane itself, well to the north of Puerto Rico already, moving out to the east of the Bahamas. It's still on a northeasterly track, expected to move, or northwesterly track, expected to move more westerly once it hits a ridge, and that's going to begin to aim it right at the eastern coast of Florida, as the latest forecasts from the National Hurricane Center are predicting. This view with a Russian Soyuz spacecraft in the foreground, used to transport astronauts to and from the International Space Station. Hurricane Dorian behind it, while the station continues to fly 261 statute miles over the Earth's surface. They're actually approaching the very northern part of South America now, about to begin a pass over land, with our cameras on the outboard continuing to look towards the hurricane. Again, updates continuing to come from the National Hurricane Center. If you're expected to be in the path of the storm, or for more information, as always, head to just hurricane.gov. That'll take you to the National Hurricane Center's main website. They are expecting tropical storm force winds from Dorian to begin in parts of Florida as early as Saturday evening or Saturday night. And again, cautioning all potentially in the path of this storm to get a hurricane plan together and stand by for any advice from local emergency officials or the National Hurricane Center, as it's continuing to move northwesterly, eventually going to be affecting the Bahamas and then ultimately the Florida Peninsula as early as this weekend. And getting a few last shots of the storm as the station continues to fly and it recedes in the background. At this point, the station already over the central part of Venezuela, still about 261 statute miles in altitude. And with that Hurricane Dorian receding into view over the horizon, the station itself continuing to move out over South America, still 261 statute miles in altitude. Getting those views of the storm, again expected to intensify over the next several days, potentially approaching Category 4 strength, with forecast winds up to 130 miles an hour in intensity before it hits the mainland and begins to cross over the eastern coast of Florida. So again, anybody in the track of the storm, please continue to follow along and get updates from local authorities and the National Hurricane Center. As we get additional flyovers of the station throughout the weekend, we will attempt to bring you that video, as the station should be in the area over the next several days. You can be sure to stay tuned to nasa.gov/station and our social media at space_station on Twitter to get the latest timing and updates on any flyovers we may have over the weekend. For now, though, we will go ahead and sign off. You can find this video and other videos online at those social media sites. And again, stay tuned if we get any more passes throughout the weekend. For now, though, we will go ahead and sign off. This is Mission Control Houston.